Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. So today we're going to look at a concept that might absolutely flip how you process your slip-ups completely upside down. We're rethinking the setbacks in your life. Why? Because, well, there are some mistakes you just cannot learn from, and trying to force a lesson, it actually might be the exact thing holding you back. Let's get right into it. I mean, we see this literally everywhere, right? It's like the ultimate hustle culture mantra. Fail forward. Every failure is just a stepping stone on the path to success. Always be learning, always be iteratively improving. And I'm sure you, like most driven people out there, probably believe this. It sounds super logical, it's really positive, and honestly, for a lot of things, it's absolutely true. We are taught from a very young age to extract a lesson from every single time we fall down. But what if I told you that constantly trying to wring a lesson out of every single failure is actually terrible advice? Like, really bad. In fact, trying to learn from your failures is oftentimes the biggest mistake you can make. Adapting to certain negative outcomes might actually be destroying their life and actively sabotaging your future success. Crazy, right? I know that sounds wild, so we really need to redefine some terms right out of the gate. Okay, let's dive into this. We need to clearly differentiate between a mistake and a failure. So a mistake, that's an error in your action or judgment. It's something you did wrong, and you can absolutely correct it next time. But a failure is simply a bad outcome. And crucially, it might not be your fault at all. Sometimes in life, you just fail. You get a bad outcome, but you didn't actually do anything wrong, which means there is absolutely zero to learn from it. Section 1. The medical metaphor and the danger of just to be safe. Now, medicine actually teaches us a lot about strategic thinking. So we're going to anchor this concept right here. Take this real case study of a medical intern. A patient comes into a primary care clinic with incredibly vague symptoms. Some sweating, some diarrhea, maybe a little fatigue. Nothing too alarming, right? But months later, that exact same patient develops neurological symptoms, specifically severe weakness in their right leg. So they're sent to a neurologist, they get an MRI, and the scan shows a heterogeneous mass on their lumbar spine. Obviously, really bad news. A biopsy confirms it's an advanced stage of cancer, and tragically, the patient passes away about a year and a half later. When a completely devastating outcome like that happens, a doctor's natural reaction is crushing guilt. They think, oh my God, I missed cancer for months. I should have caught it. Which leads us to a really crucial question. Should doctors start ordering an expensive full-body MRI for every single patient who comes in with a stomachache or diarrhea, quote unquote, just to be safe? Well, the answer is a resounding no. In fact, doing things just to be safe is widely considered one of the most dangerous phrases in all of medicine. And this brilliantly illustrates why. Let's walk through the cascade of harm here. If a doctor learns the wrong lesson from that misdiagnosis and starts panic ordering MRIs for everyone with a stomachache, they run into step 3, incidental findings. Look, nobody's body is perfect. We all have little lumps, bits of scar tissue, or weird veins. If you pan-scan everyone, you're absolutely going to find these normal, harmless imperfections. But once you find a lump, well, you have to biopsy it. And biopsying a spine carries massive risks. You can cause nerve damage or even bleeding that compresses the spine and creates permanent neurological problems. So by trying to learn a lesson from a failure, the doctor actually creates active physical harm. Moving to Section 2, the psychological trap. Why our brains trick us. So why do we constantly default to overcorrecting if it causes so much harm? Well, it all comes down to counterfactual thinking. When we experience a failure, we feel hurt, we feel totally destabilized, and our brain's negative emotional circuitry fires right up and links directly with this counterfactual thinking. Our brains are quite literally hardwired to go back in time, reject the facts of what actually happened, and obsessively construct alternative realities. We hypothesize backward, desperately trying to figure out what new rule we can create so we never have to feel that kind of pain again. Which leads to one of the most profound realizations in modern psychiatry. Psychotherapy is often just the practice of unlearning from failures that weren't actually mistakes. Think about a child who fails to get love from a parent. They didn't make a mistake, right? That is a failure entirely on the parent's part. But the child's brain goes straight into counterfactual thinking and starts forming adaptations. They think, if I admit blame even when I'm not wrong, well then they'll love me. Adapting to a failure where you did absolutely nothing wrong creates deep psychological adaptations that will actively ruin your future. Section 3. Real-world sabotage. Biopsying incidental findings in your life. Let's apply that whole medical metaphor of biopsying incidental findings directly to everyday life, because I guarantee you are probably doing this right now and you don't even realize it. Let's say you get cheated on. That is a massive, incredibly painful failure of a relationship. But sometimes, when you get cheated on, there was absolutely nothing wrong with how you acted in that relationship. It wasn't your mistake. A healthy response is accepting it as a failure that was entirely out of your control. But if you let counterfactual thinking take over, you get counterfactual sabotage. You decide you need to learn a lesson to stay safe. So, in your very next relationship, you demand constant location sharing, you check their texts, you ban them from having platonic friends. Basically, you're carrying paranoid rules into a brand new relationship. You are biopsying an incidental finding, causing a bleed, and literally creating sabotage out of thin air. And this happens in completely different domains too, like gaming. Take the highly competitive game Dota 2. There's an in-game item called the Hand of Midas. It costs 2,200 gold, and it takes 18 entire minutes just to refund its cost and start making a profit. High-rank players use strategic assessment for this, but low-rank players, they get totally stuck because of counterfactual panic. They lose a grueling 60-minute game, they get super emotional, and they suddenly decide the quote-unquote lesson is that they should have bought the Hand of Midas. So in their very next game, they panic buy this item super early on, essentially wasting their gold for 18 minutes and drastically decreasing their chances of victory. They learned a completely wrong lesson, and it keeps them stuck at a low rank forever. Section 4. The antidote. How to avoid the wrong lessons. So, how do we practically avoid taking away the wrong lessons from our failures? Well, let's slow down for a second and return to the medical field for the perfect example of an antidote here. In hospitals, there's a really delicate time when the day shift passes off patients to the night shift. In one specific instance, a resident doctor passed off a patient whose blood pressure was slightly dropping, maybe showing early signs of sepsis. The incoming night shift doctor immediately panicked, demanded the patient be transferred to the ICU right then and there, and basically made the first doctor feel like they had made a massive life-threatening mistake. But the next morning, the highly experienced attending doctor came in and reviewed the data calmly. And his wisdom? Calm down. You didn't do anything wrong. You looked at the data, you kept a close eye on an equivocal case, and you didn't miss anything. So, the crucial point is, if you want to avoid learning the wrong lessons, you have to follow 3 steps. Step 1, assess your emotional state. Are you highly emotional? Are you panicked or hurt right now? If the answer is yes, then step 2 is an absolute mandate. Do not form a conclusion. Do not make an ultimatum. Do not say things like, I will never trust a man again, or I will always do X from now on. Those black and white generalizations, that is pure sabotage. And finally, step 3, wait. Wait until you are calm. Wait until your negative emotional circuitry has fully powered down, and only then revisit the situation. Which leaves us with this final, vital question to ask yourself the next time you face a really painful setback. I want you to look back at the rules you live your life by today, the walls you've put up, the strategies you absolutely swear by. Are you actually learning